On today's show of the Sales Factor podcast, we have none other than Jake Appleton. He is the Global Sales Development Manager for Zephyr. He is running a global sales team at the moment, and he's a huge advocate for mental health. He knows firsthand from his own personal experience how important it is to have the right balance internally to enable the sales team to not feel stressed, not feel anxious, but able to come to him, talk to him about anything that will then impact their performance to go and achieve the targets and goals that they want to go and achieve. So, welcome to the show. Let's get into it. Jake,
Hello.
what is the biggest challenge or problem that you're finding in sales right now?
So I think look, it's a massive question, right? And I think there's so many things in terms of the technical side of sales that are huge, like customer retention, people you are reaching out to, finding the right person at the right time. But I think one of the overarching problems that people don't specifically kind of address or look at is the idea of mental health in sales.
Mm.
I think it's such a huge issue that a lot of companies will kind of gloss over or think they're doing enough, but in reality, they're just really not. So I think for me, like that at the moment is like the biggest problem within the sales world.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Mental health's been around. We know the importance of it. We saw people that are on like learning about it and understand the importance of it. I've never really had some training around it. I've been aware of it, but never really had any formal training about mental health or what to do with it. But like, why do you think it's such a big problem? Why do you think it's something that people like are constantly aware of, or in their own sales teams in a company?
I think it stems back from like what sales used to be. Like sales used to be that, and in some companies it still is, right? It's that cutthroat
Mm.
industry where it's constantly about results, 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 results. And I think the world has changed and it's moved on now. And I think the way that you get the best out of people is that people feel in like they are in a safe environment. They feel like they're in an environment where they feel comfortable, where they enjoy coming to work. Like if your manager is constantly kind of harping on at you about where's this coming from, where's that coming from, where's this, where's that, suddenly you're kind of in this kind of stress that is constant and constantly going around your head, and you will end work on a Friday but still be thinking about shit. I didn't hit my target this week. I didn't hit quota this week, and that takes into your weekend, that ruins your weekend, and then you come into Monday dreading work on a Monday, and it's just this kind of never-ending cycle that I think people think that they address by um, kind of saying, "Oh, you're right, how's it going?" But really, what does that do? Like a lot of these places, it's just a tick box for kind of sorting a problem that is still so kind of prevalent within the sales world, right?
Yeah, mate, you brought me back way back to my early career in sales. I was sitting there when you were saying it, I was like, oh my god, that Sunday night of crap, I need to go to bed. Like, oh crap, it's Monday morning. Like first thing on a Monday morning meeting, we go through targets last week, results last week, and going into that meeting, if you've done well, like if you've hit all your targets, going in, yeah, cool, I'm happy.
You're fine.
But like it's it, but most of the time, sometimes the targets are really hard. And if you haven't hit it, you had an off week, whatever, like it's like going into it, like you feel stressed, you feel anxious, and that impacts like the full day of sales, it can impact the week. Like there's so many different layers to it. So obviously it is a big problem that people need to address or think about, like how do they implement stages within the business. But what should people be thinking about, if because I imagine anyone listening to this is in the same boat, like they get it. And like I said earlier, my earlier sales career was very much results. Like, we don't care, like come back,
Hmm.
results, get the deals in, get the meetings in, etc. So what should people be thinking about right now, like knowing that stress and anxiety of a sales team should be not necessarily managed, but like be aware of it to make sure that people aren't feeling like too bogged down and stressed at the point where they're just like, screw this, I'm off.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's kind of twofold, right? I think first thing, like your responsibility as like a leader or a manager or people manager in charge of your team is that
Mm,
you kind of harbor the stress from above you, right? If you're then putting that stress onto your team, they're going to feel that. It's not going to kind of create that kind of harmonious atmosphere that you want within a sales world. And then I think as kind of a leader yourself, I think like if I throw this question back to you, like if you're outside of work in a group of kind of family or friends, what are the things that kind of make you feel at ease? Is people asking you questions, learning about you, kind of understanding who you are, taking an interest in you as a person, and making sure that you're supporting them in any way that you can. And I think that translates again into the sales world. And I don't think they're kind of mutually exclusive. Like, I think within work, I want to feel just as kind of I guess, supported, at ease, that I'm comfortable there as I do outside of work as well. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do to do that. And they're just kind of little things as well. Like, I struggle remembering anything. Like, someone will tell me something and it genuinely goes one in one ear and like out the other. And so I've always really, really struggled with that. But one of the things that I do, and at the back of my notebook, if somebody in my team tells me they're doing something at a weekend or they've just done this or whatever, I will put a note at the back of my notebook and say, this person has done this, ask them about it. It shows that you're kind of taking an interest and that you care about what they're doing. And I do, but if I didn't write it down, I would just not be able to remember it at all. So I think one is that kind of taking an interest within the people that you're in a team with. I think the second thing as well is that idea of positive feedback. I don't really believe in kind of that negative feedback arc and being quite harsh and critical, because look, people just need to be told straight to their face, look, do this and you'll be better. I think reality is that positive feedback makes people feel good. They feel like they're doing a great job. And actually, when you're giving feedback and it's not as positive, it's about what can we do, what steps can we put in place, that kind of collective language that lets them know it's not just them on their own. Because I think sales can be quite a lonely world as well. Like, you feel as though,
Yeah.
like, whatever territory you're in, you feel as though this is kind of my territory. I'm on my own. I'm the only person that can like kind of improve these results. So if you kind of saying we can do this together, it makes people feel a little bit more comfortable as well. Always have an end of a week check-in. So like I just do 15 minutes with each member of the team. Just be like, how's the week gone? Any stresses? You feeling all right? What would you, if you could improve one thing this week, what would you want to improve? And make sure that they feel as though they're being supported as well. And then I think the
Right.
last thing as well is whenever I have a one-to-one, so we have a half an hour kind of one-to-one on a Monday, if they've been kind of, if it's been a couple of weeks, or if they're struggling with their performance, or if they've done really, really well, regardless of kind of their results, that one-to-one will just be like a general conversation. It won't be anything to do with work. It will be like,
Yeah.
how it's going, what you got up to this weekend, you got enough plans in the future, how's this, how's that, basically taking an interest in their lives. And look, you're not there to become best mates with the people that you manage, but I still feel as though you can form some sort of connection or bond that makes them feel like they're part of a team, they're part of a kind of collective, and that they want to be there and they want to come to work. Like, I will
Mm.
never kind of be harboring on about where are these results, where's that. And so I think it's important to always maintain that level of, I guess, understanding and sympathy towards your teammates as to what they're going through. Because like, we've been through it as well, right? We've been sat
Yeah.
there and we've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
stressing, and like, I've been sat there on a call knowing that I haven't got the results, and
Yeah.
then someone come in going, right, where are these? And I'm like, they're
Yeah.
clearly not here. Like, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that, asking me that isn't going to make me feel any better. I know I need
Pointless.
to
Yeah.
improve, but just help me improve rather than just being like, where is it? Do more calls, email more people. Like,
Yeah.
that just doesn't work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Loads to dissect there for sure, and thanks for that. That's
Yeah,
really,
sorry,
really useful.
I speak
No, no,
quite a
no,
lot.
good. No, no, because like it's good because like the first point you said about like when you're in a family environment, talking to people about themselves, like people love talking about themselves, right? And even transfer that into the sales environment when we're going out prospecting, we want to talk about the client, them. What where's their needs, the pain points, etc. So we do it naturally as salespeople. But then when it comes to internally, like I remember we even set up like one to ones and stuff like that, but they never happened. They always got pushed away. Another
Mm,
meeting came in, something happened, and I think if you're like a salesperson just in a role doing sales constantly, like yeah, it's great and it can be fun, but then if you don't have that support and that positive reinforcement coming in, like you said, like it can be like the make or break of some people. Because sometimes like you might not be getting the results, i.e., core results of a meeting or a deal in or whatever, but going through the process of sales, if you have that support and go, okay, great, like here's a little win, cool house, and if I don't think it's necessarily results per se like that. I think it's more, are they growing? Do they feel they are growing and learning and
mhm,
an environment where they can learn that? Because you look at any salesperson, like it takes a time to learn, and if people stop learning, that's when they fall out of love of the job and what they're doing. If they do that, they're gone. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've definitely been in that situation where it's where's the results, where's the results, where's the results versus trying to implement one to ones didn't happen to the end companies where I have been in it where it was regimented each week, like we're just having catch up, a coffee, even a beer, whatever. Um, and that does make all the difference because that then builds the relationship on a
Hmm.
different level rather than just you're here to do work for me and hit results for me.
Absolutely, and
So
it and like, sorry to interrupt, but it just made like,
right?
imagine how shit you felt as like a SDRA, whatever it was, when people came in and like, why would you want to make somebody feel that shit and like that small and like
Mm.
that they just mean nothing to the company because they're just not getting results? Like, I find it really really frustrating.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what does get to me is not necessarily the negative, why have you not done this? Well, we know the answer to that, but it's like the little snidey comments that come after it.
Mm,
And
yeah,
it's just like those little one, not working hard enough, or going home early tonight, are you? Or what do you call? What time do you call this?
yeah, call it
And
overtime.
those little things. Yeah, and you're just like, and then you're like in an environment where or you're in a place where it's just like, shit, like I can't do anything but work. I feel kind of trapped
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
put into a position where all I can do is just like pick up the phone and ring, and then it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the end is inevitable. So
absolutely.
so knowing all this stuff, so how did you come to know all this stuff? Like what's your background in sort of mental health and
Yeah, I mean, I should have caveated this at the start, but like, I just want to say that like none of this comes from like a professional perspective. Like, I am
right?
not trained in anything to do with mental health. This comes from my own experience of mental health within a sales world, my own experience of mental health outside of a sales world as well, and dealing with that sort of therapy and what that teaches you, and then kind of being in a position of management as well and understanding how to deal with things from that point of view as well. So all of this comes from just, I guess, my own personal experiences and feeling as though it's not spoken about enough. And like, I think that's the thing. Once you go through it, and once you've dealt with it, and or if you're dealing with it, whatever it is, you become more attuned to wanting to help people who are also going through it as well. So, like for example, like anxiety is something that I quite naively, like 6 7 months ago,
Mm.
would just assume, or when people said, "Oh, I feel really, really anxious," was like, "You're just a bit worried, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, you can kind of just get over that." But then I think having like experienced like bad anxiety and kind of how debilitating it can be, you then kind of see everything from a completely different perspective, and you're like, "Oh, okay, like I realize how debilitating this is, like how you cannot really do anything, how you just feel this kind of overwhelming sense of dread and like can't really function." And so it kind of just
Mm.
changes your perspective. And so I think that's why I kind of give a shit. Sorry, can I swear on this podcast?
Scam, bro.
Okay. I think that's why I think that's why you kind of just you give more of a shit because you've been through it, you've experienced it, you know how low it feels. So you don't want other people to feel like that either.
Yeah.
So, and again, like all of this is, it's really easy to give out advice, right? It's really easy to kind of do all this stuff and say to people, right, this is probably the way that you should do it, or have you thought about trying this? But actually, then taking your own advice is always really, really difficult. So it's kind of a bit hypocritical to say, oh, you should do this, do that, when you kind of struggle to do it yourself. But I think as much as you can, trying to invest in the people that are in your team and making sure that you can relate to them as much as possible is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one question came to mind when you're saying that is not everyone operates the same way. Like for me, like if someone says get stuff done, I'll just get it done. Whereas that sentence to someone else could be like horrifying or could be like, do you know what I mean? They might think differently based on their own past experiences and everything like that. So I don't, and I think it's being aware of different personality types within in a sales team and how people actually react. So someone you potentially could give positive and potentially not negative, but criticism, and they'll
Mm,
take on the chin and run with it. I was always that guy. Whereas some of the people like that criticism can like literally eat them up to the
mm.
point where they are frozen. And I think it's being aware of the people in your business, and that I believe drives from your one to ones or your 15-minute catch ups where you actually get to know them as individuals and how they operate, or how they work as individuals, so that then you can best support
Yeah, I think so. And I think everybody's motivated by different things as well. Like
them.
people are different. And
Mm,
as you said, like being in one-to-ones with people and taking the time out of your day in those one-to-ones to really understand them is
mm,
only going to benefit them. Like if you can understand what motivates people, what drives people, why they're in the job that they're in, you can shape your kind of whole managerial position around that. Like you can know that somebody is driven by numbers, so if they're not getting numbers, they want to get numbers. Let's go, go, go. Other people are driven by kind of learning and improving on skills and get satisfaction from that out of a job. And other people perhaps are driven by money. Like people are driven by loads of different things, and by taking the time out of your day to understand that is only going to improve their mental uh well-being,
mm.
uh and I think yours as well, because you're going to have created this environment where it's not high stress. You're not kind of always having to pick up the pieces of somebody not hitting their results, or somebody coming to you and being like, "Oh, I feel really unhappy with this." Like you're going to create an environment that's going to make it easier for you as a manager and them as a um, employee as well.
Yeah. So yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's like creating that environment, that like safe environment that you're on top of it. You're with that person or that team, but they also feel safe to be able to talk to you and openly about things, knowing that you're not just gonna like, oh, go away, like can't be bothered, or that you're actually gonna action something that's gonna
Mm,
enable them to do better, perform better, get better results, and actually enjoy the job. But because there's a lot of cool advice there that you've give where like people can take part and implement one-to-ones or sit downs with them, etc., etc. But like doesn't need to be a big rollout. So say someone's listening like, okay, cool, I should be really thinking about this. Like
mhm.
does it need to be a big rollout and big, not like a better word, like big hoo-ha, we're going to go on a big mental health well-being, we're going to action all this stuff, or how should people like feed it in if they're not doing it now?
I'll be honest. If I find that people that do big rollouts to mental health, I think it's bullshit. To be honest, I think it's like we're doing this massive thing of like we're going to be talking about this all the time, and actually you need to get the fundamentals right first of those little things that you do within a team, um, and then you can start to roll it out to kind of the wider company. But you can't just suddenly have nothing to do with mental health and then have this massive kind of rush, and because I just think it's quite see through, and like you can just see that it's kind of bullshit. Like I read a quote the other day, I've got it here, that said, this is a recent uni grad, and she quit her sales job. And she said, the results came as no surprise to me. The culture of working sales is constant, and constantly needing to hit new targets creates a lot of stress for everyone involved. And it's what caused me to leave my position. But I think this is the bit that kind of stuck with me is I firmly believe there is a stigma attached to the topic of mental health, which I completely agree with. In all walks of life, but especially in sales, no one discussed it in my previous role. In order for things to improve, we need to see changes at the very top, and those lower down need to feel comfortable talking to their managers about these topics. So I think
Mm,
that as a real life experience, you need to create that from kind of top down. I feel like I can go to my COO, CEO, and I could say, look, I'm feeling like awful. Um,
yeah.
at the moment, I feel like they've created an environment where I can do that. But I know in other companies that I've worked with, like that hasn't been the case. It's been very much kind of reactive rather than proactive. So um, it's very much a case of they will speak to you and help you if you go to them, but there's no kind of proactiveness there. So I think one of the big things that I've seen at this company that I'm at the moment that we do is and what I quite like to bring back is something where they kind of rolled out a kind of interview kind of thing with the kind of the top people in the company, where they ask them these questions around how are you feeling, what do you think about mental health, or tell us a time where you've been sad or you've struggled or whatever it is. And I think if you can see the vulnerability in people above you, it's a lot easier for you to then be vulnerable to them because you've seen their vulnerability. I think you always see these managers or heads of sales or COOs as these kind of impenetrable people that just kind of take everything on and never show any weakness. But I think there's so much strength in showing weakness, particularly to your team. Um, that I think that's kind of one of the ways that you can start without it feeling inauthentic.
Yeah, I love that point. That's great. I think with people's titles or status within business,
Mm,
or even outside, I feel that people put them up on pedestals.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're human. They've still got feelings. They've still got emotions, and just breaking that barrier down and letting someone inside to the emotional side or how people are feeling from the top can change the dynamic from a individual at the lower ends or at the entry level, thinking, oh crap, like, these guys really care about this. So how has it been received internally from the sales, the staff? Like, because I imagine you probably people in your team that have been in other companies before come to you guys, and there's obviously this stuff that's involved, which is paving the way for them to perform better and feel more less stressed, less anxious. But how have you had any feedback internally, and what's the feedback been
I think so. When we check in, like I check in with my team, like individually, we have a couple of check-ins a week,
like?
and so from them, it seems like they feel very comfortable within the role. And I think actually something one of my team said to me the other day was, for the last 3 months, I felt like I haven't been good enough to do the job, um, and I think that kind of struck a chord with me because it made me think, okay, one, I didn't know that you had been feeling like this.
Mm.
So actually, that kind of you've kind of got to take a step back and look at, okay, what could I have been doing here? Is it kind of more positive reinforcement? Is it kind of the idea of opening up that discussion as well? But I think it's tough sometimes. Like you can't demand people open up to you. Like it's not something that people can just do. Um, but I think from kind of the feedback forms that we've had, it seems as though people have people feel comfortable enough that they can open up. And I've had some interesting conversations with some of my SDRs as well. Like one of them recently got engaged, and he told me about this before he was doing it. And I'm really, really bad at kind of keeping things to myself or like saying things. So I was very close a number of times to being like, wait, guess what?
No.
But I think he trusted me with that, to kind of say, look, I'm doing this. I don't want anyone to know. He
Yeah.
told his mom and his dad. He hadn't told his friends or anything like that. So I was like, like I feel like that shows the kind of bond that you're building with these people, that they feel like they have a manager that they can trust and they can confide in, and they can kind of tell these kind of important life things too, which I thought was really, really nice. But I was so close to kind of letting it slip, but I obviously didn't. But yeah, I think it's been well received. But I did ask a couple of people this morning, like I texted a few people that I know within the sales world, and I was
Yeah.
like, what's mental health? What does mental health mean to you at your company? Like my housemate, and he said, um, there's nothing really there. I could maybe go to my manager and say something, but there's nothing. We don't have any training on it. We don't speak about it. Like it's quite a traditional sales company, right?
Mm.
And I think that's obviously difficult for him. And I messaged another person who said, never had a single person say to me, hey, I know being in a target driven role can be high pressure. How does that make you feel? And are you coping? And there's nothing in terms of like managing stress and sales, for example. And then I said, I said to somebody else, what does mental health mean to you in your company? And they went, nothing, lol. So I think that kind of goes to show that for a lot of places it is this kind of like just this tick box and be like, oh, we ran a training on it once a year ago, so actually everybody's kind of up to speed, and it's like this
Tough.
ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, especially like, there's a couple of things in my mind I want to ask you about, but it kind of like that example you gave of that lady who left. I think it was a lady who left the business because it was stressful. Like, I'd be quite interested, and I should have done a bit of research, but quite interested to see like a statistic on how many people in sales leave the job because of well-being and mental
Well, it's funny you say that, Aaron, because I actually have a stat for you. So,
health.
yeah. So 78% of the people that leave sales companies, or sales roles, leave because of issues with mental health, anxiety, stress, which is such a high number. Like 78% of people that leave. That means 22% may move on to another role or whatever, but 78% of people leave because of stress, anxiety induced from that role itself, which is like, it's ridiculous. Like that's such a high number.
And then that coupled with those text messages you sent out this morning, and people saying literally nothing, non-existent.
Well, exactly. Like, what do you
Like,
expect? You don't implement like things that make people feel safe, comfortable, that they're in a space where, look, if you don't hit your target, and this is the thing as well. Like, sales is a target-driven role, right? It is
yeah,
like, and that will never change. But I think the problem is that it's a target driven role, but you're doing a target driven role in an environment where you're not supporting people to achieve that target. So that's the thing that needs to change. It's the targets are always going to be there. It's about how you get people to those targets. Is it
Mm.
top down? Where the hell is this result? Like, where are your numbers? Why are you not calling people? Or is it okay? So you haven't done it this month. What are we going to change next month to kind of help you get there? Okay, let's
Yeah.
have a look at this. Let's go through this. Let's work on your calling or your emailing or your LinkedIn messaging or your video messaging, whatever it might be. Let's work on those things to improve you rather than just demanding a number from you. And if you don't hit it, you're out.
Yeah. And I haven't done. I've done bits and pieces of training here, but nothing
Yeah.
exceptional. But when I was leading sales teams, even in recruitment way back, like I always had a lot of empathy because my background growing up is shit, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically I was living by myself since I was 14, and I always like felt the empathy towards people or even sympathy, um, where I always wanted people to not ever be in the situation I was in. So I was always like speaking to them, trying like speaking to them on a human level to see where their heads at, how they feel and stuff like that, so that they can do better. And it was always one of the when we done like 360 reviews of like, he's always there, caring, go for coffees, go for this, constantly speaking to us to make sure we're okay, that we're doing okay, because it is quite stressful. And even in my recent role with the SDR team, like something I did like every morning, just like not necessarily catch up calls or anything like that, just like, oh, 10 minutes. How are you feeling? How's things? How's last night? What'd you do? Right, cool. You set for today? Cool. Right, let's chat end of day or tomorrow, like later on. I'm
Mm.
here if you need me. Just call me. Just ping me a message on Slack or on Google Chat, and away we go. Um, because I think a lot from sales leadership perspective, we can get too focused very much, like we said, on the results, and then everything that encompasses around the results is the laser focus, and anything outside of that that enables people to get the results gets brushed under the carpet, so to speak. So
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting. Excuse me. So yeah, so definitely a few tips there from. So say someone was to look at this, then again, not a big rollout, not needed. A few simple steps like um, weekly catch up calls, 15 minutes. Let's have a chat, but chat on a personal level, get to know them. I like the idea that what you do, you're writing stuff down in the book if you can't remember, because you've got a million things going on in the head.
Mm.
Do you do any like official training with the teams or as a business on it, or is it very much just like driven from your own personal experience of what you know works?
Me personally, the only thing that we've done that I can remember doing is we did a neuro kind of diversity training, which
Okay,
kind of
yeah,
was training to do with people that have dyslexia or ADHD or whatever it might be. Um, and but in terms of mental health training, I think it would be great to do something like that.
mm,
But again, I think for a lot of companies, it's said as it's a priority, but then it becomes not. There's
yeah,
always something that kind of takes it over, if that makes sense. And I think like the companies that I'm at now, like they do a great job in terms of putting on events and things like that. But actually, at the end of the day, like that to me can sometimes be a mask. Like
mm,
it's trying to put a plaster over a stab wound or something like that. Like if you want to kind of deal with the issue, then mental health training will be great. Like how to deal with somebody who's struggling with mental health. And I think one of the big things with that is you understand them, like speak to them about it. Some people may shy away from it and not want to speak about it. A lot of people I know will kind of love that somebody is taking the time out of their day to understand how they're feeling, or to actually take an interest in something that they probably feel quite isolated about or lonely about.
yeah,
Um, and so I think, yeah, training would be great. But if you can't do that and your company won't do that, doesn't have the resources, then just taking some time away to really understand, even if you know that somebody is struggling with anxiety, going away and reading about it, just
mm,
you gain a slight insight into what they're going through, even if they don't want to talk about it. And if you're out somewhere with them and you they bring it up, don't kind of dismiss it. Let them kind of speak about it. Let them tell you how they feel. Let them tell you how their mind works, or
mm.
what they struggle with, or the things that they can't do, or the things that they can do. Like, I think that's kind of the way forward is a level of understanding from everybody in your team.
Yeah, I like that. Because knowledge is, if you don't have the knowledge, you don't know, you're not equipped then to actually, unless you got personal experience and you can meander through it. But if you don't, and you still know this is important for your team, what they're doing, and you want to actually make an impact on it, yeah, YouTube videos, obviously this podcast, or books is a great chat. What's your thoughts on just when you're sitting there, because the one to ones, the catch ups, all that stuff's great, and I get it, and it will work. What about anonymizing like a form mental health to the team? Because like you said there, might be some people that just don't want to talk about it.
Mm,
So I was sitting there thinking, well, you could potentially introduce it from an anonymous point of view, see what the reactions is like, collect the data, and then off the back of that, like if there's a lot of people saying certain things, then you've got the data there to go, right, we need to actually implement more one-to-ones, more um, conversations from management, or potentially
mm.
even go right to the CEO or the top of the tree and look at them from a how are they feeling, how are they emotionally set, etc.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
true, and that's a really good way of putting it because I know a lot of people don't feel comfortable. I think particularly in front of a manager as well, they struggle to kind of have that conversation.
Mm,
One of the things that we did before that I did before was it was like a stop, start, continue session. So we had a
okay.
big kind of whiteboard and I had stop, start, continue. So what are the things that you want to stop in the team? Like, is it too many one-to-ones? Is it what do you want to start? Are there things kind of external things that you've seen? And what do you want to continue that we like? And so I kind of gave the team a pen. I left the room for like 20 minutes, came back, took a picture of it, and then could kind of go away and kind of work on those things as well without feeling like they had to kind of explain it or say it. They could just write it down and with kind of no fear of judgment, I guess. But I like the anonymous
Yeah.
idea as well. And I think anonymous is probably a lot better for mental wellness rather than kind of things that happen in the team. Like if people are struggling with something, giving them an anonymous form to kind of speak about it is a great idea.
Yeah, I think so. I was just piecing it together. Like when I build my team, that's probably what I'll end up doing. Is yes, I'll have the one-to-ones and stuff, but from an anonymous point of view, I think people are like they feel that they're not like you said, that environment in front of your manager, in front of the CEO, and having to like watch your words and all that sort of stuff, or walk on eggshells per se, gives them that kind of like foot and feeling comfortable with voicing stuff up, and then off
Mm.
the back of that, action plans, not like a big rollout or anything, but it could be just as simple as a 15-20 minute catch up at the end of the week to really get to know them on a personal level, and then the story will develop over time where you can really help them out. I had a few questions, but like you've answered them throughout your answers around like how does someone go get started on this if they don't know? So definitely books, YouTube videos, podcasts. I'm sure there's hundreds of stuff out there. I think there's also people out there who are fully qualified on mental health well-being that can come into your business and do like a team sit down for an hour. So I don't think that too expensive either. Um, but just being aware of it. In Hoxo, we had Dr. Arya, who came on the show, or who was on Sean's podcast, and he's been on Stephen Bartlett's as well. But he came in for an hour and talked about like the thought process from a psychological point of view of how the mind works in different
Mm.
areas and what to look out for. So, yeah, and so that's some really good tips there. I I appreciate that you just said like you don't need a big rollout. Like that always scares me. Like we're going to be this big hoo ha, and for the next 3 months, because what then happens is it all gung ho at the start. 2 weeks in, dies off, and then you're
Yeah.
back into false promises and all the rest. So yeah, so for the week, weekly catch ups with people, writing stuff down, getting to know them on a personal level rather than that. Understand how they actually operate or how they think. Are they money driven? Are they results driven? Are they more like driven by feeling safe and feeling like they're more secure and actually learning and developing as a person? And
Mm.
then yeah. So anything else that you think people should take away from this podcast or implement into their sales team from a well-being or mental health practice that you found that works really well?
I think practice being open and honest with your team. Like if you're struggling with something as a manager, say that. Like if you have something, they will respect the fact that you've been open and honest with them and that you trust them. And then that works both ways. I think make sure that you are always, and I think this is the biggest thing as well, is that the scariest thing uh, and I've found this as well, the biggest kind of leap of faith is saying like I'm not all right. Like
Mm,
I've had two experiences in my life where I felt like a weight lift off my chest, and both of them came from me going, I'm not okay. And like
right.
vocalizing it and saying it out loud and like I'm not all right. I know it's the scariest thing in the world to do, but if you are struggling and you do feel like you're struggling with uh, anxiety or stress or depression or whatever it is, it may not seem like it, but there will be somebody there to kind of help you or to kind of guide you along with it. And the reason
Yeah.
that managers are there to support you and help you get to kind of that next stage of where you want to be. And if you're struggling to get there because of X, Y, Z, they will help in any way that they can to help you find the right support or to be there as a voice to kind of listen.
Mm,
So just kind of communicate. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's so easy sitting here saying this,
yeah.
and it's so easy to sit here and say just communicate. And I know that for a lot of people that's really really difficult to do, but maybe just build
Yeah.
up the courage by saying it like out loud in front of the mirror first. Like I know it sounds silly, but vocalizing it and actually saying it really genuinely does help. So that would kind of be my top advice on top of everything that we've spoken about is
Yeah.
communicate and vocalize how you're feeling, because people can't second guess, right?
Yeah. And just to add on to that, it's stripping away the pride and the ego
Mm,
to say
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
'Cause that's what
100.
holds people back, right? Is they don't want to look weak or inefficient or incompetence or do you know what I mean? So stripping
Yeah.
that away and getting back to the bare bones, because what then happens is the other person is probably not even thinking that way. And the fact that if you're voicing something or saying something, well, as human nature at a core, we like helping people. People want to help. So if you do voice something up, like be obviously practice in the mirror, absolutely. I've been there myself. I've done that many times. But yeah, like it's always like our brain goes down this route of the worst scenario happens all the time. You know, you could be, for example, in the house, you leave the iron on and the iron board, you go out, you go to Tesco's, go to Sainsbury's, you're getting going shopping, you're like, oh crap, I've left the iron on. Straight
Mm.
away, your mind's like, right, it's on fire, the living room's burnt down, the kitchen's on fire, the dog's got no hair left, like it's on fire. I've no insurance. Like your mind just goes rapid. But what actually happens is you get back home, you walk for the door, the iron's on, it's hot, you turn it off, and
Everything's
everything's
fine.
fine. So
Yeah.
it's the same with that. Like, don't let your own brain talk you out of something that you need to be addressed or need support or help with, because
Mhm.
you're doing yourself injustice not by not doing it. So good, mate. I thought really wicked conversation with you about that. I didn't want it to be a big all like rollout and stuff, but yeah, really useful and actionable tips people can take away and start thinking like, actually, do you know what, we need to do this. So I really appreciate your time on that. Now, slight slant on mental health and well-being, but you've been
Mm.
in sales for a while.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest highlight to date throughout your whole sales career?
Um, I genuinely, I reckon getting the role that I'm in now. Um,
Right.
I think it came at a time where I really really didn't think I was going to get it, or was struggling myself. So like getting it and then
Okay.
being, I guess, having that trust put in me to kind of lead this SDR function and kind of go it out and build it in the way that I wanted it, was, I guess, everything that I was working towards. A lot of people want to go and just kind of have a career in sales as an AE, but like for me, people management was like where I wanted to get to.
Mm,
For me, I feel like I'm fairly young to be doing this role, but I think it's something that I always wanted, and I think for me that's the proudest I've been.
right.
Yeah.
Wicked. Awesome. Yeah, and you can definitely see the passion coming through from even speaking and obviously allowing. I think it speaks volumes of Zephyr and what you guys are doing, allowing you to be the person you are and actually develop the team the way you want to do it with, coupled with, rather than just results driven, coupled with everything else that's the building blocks that supports people. So wicked, mate. Awesome. Thanks for being on the show. Last question. And it's more if people want to reach out to you, talk about mental health, well-being, stuff, or whatever. Like, how do people get in contact with you? How should they reach out to you? And feel free to plug in the business, or if you're hiring right now, feel free to plug away.
Okay, I will plug in a few things. The first thing I'll plug in is I do another podcast, which is around kind of mental health and well-being, called A Pint with a Purpose. So you can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, which is generally kind of me and my mate sitting down and talking about different topics. We get great guests on, people that suffer with bipolar or anxiety, body dysmorphia, whatever it might be. So I would go and check that out if you can.
Yeah.
Hiring wise, I'm still waiting for approval on 2 more roles, but keep an eye out if you are a kind of budding SDR and want to come work at Zephyr Zora, and they'll be hopefully on LinkedIn soon enough. And like, if you do want to kind of get in contact or have a chat or are struggling, then feel free to reach out to me on kind of LinkedIn, send me an email, whatever. All my stuff and contact details are on there.
Amazing, mate. Awesome. Yeah, well, if you need help with those road awesome, buddy. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Aaron. Cheers.
So that was an episode there with Jake Appleton. Loved that conversation. Like, so much actionable information you can take away and implement into your own business. So, it all driving from the sales leader, managing stress, understanding different personality types, and really people that are struggling with anything. Like, if you as a salesperson or sales leader have a million things going on, nice little tip is writing stuff down and really understand your team, what they're doing outside of work, that you can really build that relationship so that they can feel safe and come to you with any issues, any problems. Another actionable tip that Jake gave was around positive feedback and making people feel good that they're actually doing a good job. We understand the criticism, negative feedback can be given, but does it really serve a big purpose? Like, does it really do anything that's going to advance that person forward in your team? Weekly check-ins, we know while we do it, sometimes definitely guilty of putting it under the carpet and moving it, but it's so important. I'm making those one-to-ones or those catch-ups not about work, about that person. We do it with our prospects and people we want to go out with to really understand them on a personal level and build that relationship. So why not do it internally? Um, Again, with well-being, with mental health, it shouldn't and it doesn't necessarily need to be a massive rollout. So Jake gives some really actionable tips of what you can start doing from an internal business with your sales team and with the leadership, etc., so that it's not just out of nowhere. You can gradually increase it as you go. How do you actually support your team? How do they feel that they can actually speak with you? And lastly, talking about like how do you even get started with something like well-being and mental health? How do you gain knowledge? So going out, looking at books, podcasts, events. There's some experts and specialists out there that you can really go and speak to and get them into your business to really raise the level of understanding of how important it is to enable your sales team to go out there, not feel stressed, not feel anxious, and being able to be um, good at what they do and perform. So, really appreciate you on the show, Jake. And that is it for us today on the Sales Factor podcast. And I will see you on the next one.